It's 10 a.m. and I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Board of Directors of Friday, October 25th, 2024. Please note this meeting is being recorded. Thank you to everyone joining us today in person and through our audio options. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Thank you. Good morning. Starting with Director Conroy. Absent. Director Dorsey.
Present.
Present. Ingardio. Absent. Garbarino. Present. Judice.
Here.
Roseball.
Present.
Hernandez. Absent. Maston.
Here.
Holton Peters.
Here.
Parr.
Present.
Verdoni.
Present.
Safai. Absent. Snyder. Absent. Stephanie.
Present.
Harriet.
Here.
Beer.
Here.
Second Vice President Rabbit.
Here.
First Vice President Hill.
Here.
And President Cochran.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
All right. Thank you. As a reminder, please be sure to turn off your mics when we open up our director's discussion so everyone can hear. Please raise your hand so the Secretary and I can identify you accordingly. And if we miss you, please speak up. Following any discussion, we would take an appropriate vote. Please follow along by referring to page numbers located at the bottom right-hand corner of your meeting packet. Director Maston, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
After me, allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you. Madam Secretary, please continue with our.
Thank you. We're going to move on to agenda item number 4. That's public comment for any and all items on today's agenda. If you wish to speak on an item on our agenda, please speak to it now. We will start with those attending in our meeting today in person, but we have no speaker cards. So I'm looking around to see if anyone puts their hand up and wants to speak today. And seeing that, I know that we do have someone online that wants to speak. So I'm going to turn it over to Justine and introduce our speaker on the public line. Justine, go ahead.
Good morning. Our speaker this morning is Dave Rohde. Mr. Rohde, please go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Dave Rohde. I'm the San Francisco Policy Co-Chair for the Climate Reality Project. I'm calling in today because I'm fighting off a nasty cold and didn't want to take the chance of passing it along to any of you. I know everyone, including me, is very distracted right now by the election that's just 11 days away, so I'll try to be brief. At a recent board meeting, Director Theriault made a great suggestion about the next step in implementing the climate action that you outlined in your strategic plan initiatives. If I heard him correctly, he suggested that the district hire a new staff member tasked with the responsibility of creating step-by-step plans toward achieving your sustainability goals. For now, let's call this member a sustainability director. He or she would define and expand on every goal stated in item 16 of your 2024 strategic plan initiative. What is a feasible, financially and environmentally sustainable business model? What are the best green transportation options for bridge, bus, and ferry operations? How can the district reduce waste and become more climate responsible? You get the idea. Definitions, strategies, and timelines. I'm not sure which committee this motion should originate from, but I'm hoping that one or more of you will take the responsibility of pushing this proposal forward. Shifting gears a bit, I know this sounds like a month-by-month debate between you and me, Mr. Mulligan, but I have to respond to the answer you gave Director Thier at last month's meeting. She asked why the district is still not considering electric ferries. Your answer was basically speed. You said that electric ferries aren't fast enough. But that makes it sound like a ferry goes full throttle all the way from Larkspur to San Francisco. And that doesn't take into account the speed limits all across the bay. A couple of years ago, I had an engineer figure out the difference in time between one of your diesel catamarans with a maximum speed of 35 knots and an electric ferry with a maximum speed of 30 knots. Because of the speed limits, the difference is just 8 minutes from Larkspur to San Francisco. Do you think your commuters will abandon your ferries because of a mere 8 minutes? But remember, the electric ferries being built 2 years ago that were capable of 30 knots are getting faster year by year. So with the long-range planning it takes to buy a new ferry, why keep writing off electric ferries? With the importance of the election coming up, I feel like when I see you all next month, it'll be a new reality. Hopefully, it will be one in which we will all be able to thrive. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dave. All right.
As of the start of this, thank you. As of the start of this call, I have no other speakers other than Mr. Rohde. If you'd like me to poll again, I am happy to do so.
Sure, go ahead and poll again.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone new that's joined us that would like to speak at the board meeting this morning? Please use ** to unmute yourself and give me your name. Again, if you'd like to speak at the board meeting, you'll need to press ** to unmute yourself and give me your name. I am not hearing any other speakers this morning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Justine. And thank you, Dave, for your comments. This concludes our public comments for our item on today's agenda. And we're going to move on to item number 5 to approve the consent agenda. Yesterday at Finance Committee, we struck item 5B4 from the agenda as PFM did not submit their monthly report in time for the meeting. Before we take a vote, are there any questions from the board members on the consent agenda? If not, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Let the record show there's no opposition and the motion passes. Moving on to item number 6A, which is report of the general manager. Dennis, would you please proceed with your report?
Thank you, President Cochran, members of the board, members of the public and staff. My written report is before you. I'll just mention a couple items. First, a bit of good news. I reported last month that in July and August, our traffic southbound on the bridge, which pays our bills, was slightly less than the same month a year earlier. Fortunately, that trend was reversed in September when bridge traffic was about 2% above September 2023 bridge traffic. So a little sigh of relief, but we'll continue to monitor it carefully. Commute bridge traffic, though, between 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. on weekdays is still down about 28%, so we don't see a commute. And tolls are our largest source of revenue, so we look forward to things continuing to slowly rebound because that's how we pay our bills. Encouragingly, we're still seeing some modest growth in the bus and ferry side. Bus ridership in September was 2% above September a year earlier, and ferry ridership was 15% above the same month a year earlier. So we'll continue to track that, and we'll continue to adjust bus and ferry service levels to add back service incrementally in response to customer demand and doing so in an efficient manner. I mentioned that, commute traffic is down 28%. Overall bridge traffic is still down about 15% compared to pre-pandemic. So that's important to us because it creates financial challenges for us. Those financial challenges may be exacerbated a little bit. Before the pandemic, the largest source of revenue for our transit system, our buses and ferries, was bridge tolls. After we use bridge tolls to maintain, own, and operate the bridge, we have leftover tolls that we use for bus and ferry systems. Then the second largest source of funding before the pandemic for our bus and ferry system was passenger fares. We don't give away our service because we don't have local sales tax directed to us to allow us to pay for our service. So we rely on our passengers to pay for it. Our third largest source of revenue was state assistance that flows to all transit operators, what's known as State Transit Assistance, STA, and TDA, the Transit Development Account. We receive those monies through MTC with what's known as a coordinated claim submitted from the counties. And last week, the Sonoma County Transportation Authority voted for next fiscal year to recommend to MTC that we receive $3.4 million less than we would normally receive. Normally we receive about $7.5 million. So that's not an insignificant haircut. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. The fact that they recommend it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a done deal. Historically, for the last about 3 decades, we've received 25% of Sonoma County TDA's money. It goes back to an old political agreement that was worked out that they don't give us any of their STA or TDA. We don't get their LC top money, but we get 25% of the TDA. So they didn't revisit the UZA portion of this. They did not revisit the STA portion. They did not revisit LC top. They just said, let's try to take money from Golden Gate. So MTC is where this will play out next. MTC generally doesn't like to see these fights. While this may be the first time in 3 decades from Sonoma County or from the North Bay in general, it occurred pretty regularly at MTC and other counties. But it is something to be aware of, because that means we'll have $3.4 million potentially less for our bus and ferry system. And so I want to acknowledge and thank Directors Gerard Giudice and Dave Rabbit for their ardent and vociferous advocacy on our behalf. But, 2 out of 12 is not great math. And, the temptation, I think there's a lesson here, though. There's a lot of talk about regionalism and regional transit. And the lesson here is that, provincialism is always tempting. It's always tempting to try to take something from the regional partner because you really don't see it. You don't really know how it works. And they have other sources. And then you can maybe have another little extra local bus route in your community. Whether or not it's utilized well or not doesn't matter. You just, want to keep a constituent happy. And you keep constituents happy by taking money away from regional folks and using it for local purposes. So it's just important to be aware of that. It still has to play out at MTC. It's not over till it's over. But it is disheartening because you saw a presentation yesterday on mascots. We're doing joint planning with all the Marin and Sonoma operators, regional and local, about how would we better design the system for the customer. If one company ran all of this service, what would it look like? And it would be different. And so we're going through that exercise. And instead of waiting for that work to be completed next year, they said, no, let's take that $3.4 million haircut for Golden Gate today. And so, like I said, there's a lesson there when people talk about regionalism, and we need to make sure that as we roll out things regionally for regional benefits, that we're cognizant that how it's structured may allow in the future local interests to override regional needs, and it's just something to be cognizant of from a policy perspective. With that, though, I'll move on to the fun part of the meeting, and I would like to ask our bridge manager, Dave Rivera, to escort up Dominique Gabriel. Dominique was selected by the Employee of the Month Committee, which is an employee of committees, to be the Employee of the Month for this month. Dominique originally started as a part-time lane worker with the district, the lowest possible position at the bridge, and he's risen through the ranks to be in charge of roadway services. So all of the staff that drive the barrier transfer machines, that drive the tow trucks, they're his department. He's recognized for his fabulous leadership, his collaboration in working with the unions, his staff, and other departments, and our security partners to get work done. He recognized early on that we're starting to see more EVs on the bridge. EVs are a great thing. I hope Mr. Rohde is still looking. But EV battery fire on a steel bridge is problematic. So he got out ahead of it and worked with our procurement department to make sure we had adequate resources and staff training, and worked with partner agencies so we would not be a bad headline someday. So his colleagues, the employees throughout the organization, wanted to recognize him as our employee this month. So please join me in giving him a round of applause.
Is there some family in the back that we need to invite up?
I have my life partner, Latoya. She's in a pretty pink dress. Hi, thank you. Thank the board for taking time on your busy day to recognize employees of the month. Dennis, thank you. Emma, everybody here, thank you for just taking time out to recognize employees. I want to thank my team, the roadway service technicians. Snell's back there. He's one of my guys. It takes a special group to put your life on the line every day and try to rescue people and equipment and save the bridge. So my team, without my team, I wouldn't be here right now. Great group of guys. I don't want to thank upper management, Dave and Roger, with their guidance and their knowledge that they're passing on to me. I'm just more than grateful. And everybody else here at the district, all the employees, everybody here that I email or walk in their office, talk to in the yard. We collaborate so well. With any project we're working on together, and it's, I mean, hands down, it's the best group of guys I've ever worked with. So without them, I wouldn't be here. I just want to dedicate this to all the employees here.
All right, thank you, Dennis.
Congratulations.
Are there any questions related to the general manager's report? If not, Dennis, thank you for your report. And we're going to move on to item number 6B, which is the attorney's report. I will turn things over to Kim Manolis for his report. Kim?
Thanks, President Coffey. My written report's before you. I'm happy to take any questions. You'll note that today we have 2 closed sessions.
Yep.
So I think what we're going to do is do the closed session on the public employee performance piece first, come out to an open session item, and then go back into closed session for the suicide deterrent litigation closed session, and that will not require the open session item after. So that's why we'll do that, so we can let the public know. Questions on my report or anything? Thanks.
Thank you, Kim. We'll move on to item number 6C, which is the report of the district engineer. As a reminder, the engineer's report can be found in the Building and Operating Committee's meeting package, agenda item number 7. And John Everly is here to present his report. John, please proceed.
Morning. Morning, President, members of the committee, members of the board. As was mentioned, the report's in the Building and Operating Committee. If you have any questions on that. But for those of you who were not here yesterday, there were a couple of projects that I highlighted that I wanted to go over again today. On page 48 in the engineer's report, there's a reference to the Vista Point Trail Improvement Project that I wanted to mention. This is a project that the National Park Service is running. It's funded with FHWA, Federal Land Transportation Program funds. The project has been awarded to a contractor. It's planned to begin in December, mid-December, when the contractor will mobilize. They're doing submittals currently, and it'll be approximately a 1-year project. The project will open up a new trail from the Dana Bowers Vista Point Vista Point on the north end of the bridge, and there'll be a trail around the backside with views of the bay and Fort Baker. And it will allow an alternate route for pedestrians and bicyclists to get down to Fort Baker and then all the way to South Toledo. So it will be a bypass for folks, so they don't have to go down Alexander Avenue, which some people find challenging. The district is not funding the project, but we are involved. We're coordinating with our contractor on the suicide deterrent project, plus our operations staff, and we will be responsible, the district will be responsible for long-term maintenance because the surrounding area has been impacted from previous bridge operations, painting operations. So there's catch basins that will collect any sediment, and the district will be responsible for handling that. So that's on page 48 of the report. And we'll be reporting on that as progress occurs over the next year. Another project that I want to bring up is the South Toledo Landside Improvement Projects. This project here, the district received a grant from Federal Transit Administration for the actual improvements. The district does not own the land, so the district has a pass-through agreement with the city of South Toledo that we've been monitoring and assisting them with to make sure they comply with all the FTA grant requirements. The project did go to construction in mid-September. It's progressing along. So far, so good. We are coordinating that because part of the work involves our future South Toledo ferry waterside project. So some of the underground utility work will be performed now, so we don't have to go back later and tear up the new improvements that they're installing. It's being phased with our input because it does impact access to our ferry facility. So again, I just wanted to highlight those two, and if there are any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay.
Thank you for the report. Do you have a simple map of the trail?
I do.
Trail that you could share with us?
I could forward that to Amra to get to the whole board.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of John? Thank you, John. We appreciate your report. Continue on to 8A, which is a report from yesterday's Building and Operating Committee. Chairman Gabarino, would you please proceed with the report?
Thank you, President Cochran. The Building and Operating Committee recommends approval of item 8A1 to approve award of contract number 2024 F010 San Francisco Ferry Terminal West and East Berth Ramp Rehabilitation to Manson Construction Company of Seattle, Washington, the amount of $7,915,000. Also establish a construction contingency for the contract in the amount of $791,500, equal to 10% of the contract award amount, and authorize an increase in the amount of $4,134,282 in the FY 24-25 Ferry Division capital budget for project number 2443, San Francisco Ferry Terminal West and East Berth Ramp Rehabilitation, to be funded with district reserves in concurrence with the Finance Auditing Committee as detailed in the staff report, and I so move.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any, before I take the vote, are there any questions related to the item? See none. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Let the record show that there is no opposition and the motion passes. Chair Gabarino, please continue with your report.
Thank you, President Cochran. The next item for recommendation is item number 8A2, which is contingent upon the action we just took to award of construction contract number 2024 F010, San Francisco Ferry Terminal West and East Berth Ramp Rehabilitation, to now authorize award of the Fifth Amendment to Professional Services Agreement number 2021 F049, San Francisco Ferry Terminal Inner and Outer Berths Damage Assessment, with Moffitt and Nickel in an amount not to exceed $433,440 for engineering support services during construction of the San Francisco Ferry Terminal West and East Berth Ramp Rehabilitation, and establish a 10% contingency for the Fifth Amendment to Professional Services Agreement number 2021 F049 in the amount of $43,344 as detailed in the staff report, and I so move.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Let's move and second. Any questions related to this item? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let the record show there is no opposition and the motion passes. Chair Gabarino, please continue with your report.
Thank you again, President Cochran. The last item for recommendation is item number 8A3, which is to authorize award of on-call IT project management services relative to contracts number 2024 D00101 to 2024 D00106 to Auriga Corporation. I don't know if you hate it when people mispronounce me. Sorry. California Crow LLP San Francisco, FedTech LLC Reston, Virginia, 49s Technologies Corte Madera, California, Cajun Incorporated Irvine, California, and Refine M LLC Springfield, Missouri, for the 3-year base term and with 2 additional 1-year option terms, exercisable at the district's sole discretion, with the understanding that the total spend across all 6 contracts will not exceed $2 million for the life of the contracts. as detailed in the staff report, and I so move.
I have a motion. May I have a second?
Second.
It's been seconded. Any questions on the item? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Let the record show there is no opposition. Chair Gabarino, do you have anything further to report?
No, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Continuing to item 8B on the agenda, which is a report of yesterday's Finance and Auditing Committee. Chair Rabbit, please begin with your report.
Thank you, President Cochran. The Finance Auditing Committee recommends approval of item 8B1 to establish a new capital project number 2515 ERP, or the Enterprise Resource Planning Expansion and Improvement Project Scope and Design, with an additional budget of $1,140,493 to replace capital project number 1810, the ERP system replacement, which will be closed as detailed in the staff report, and I so move.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions on the item? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Let the record show there is no opposition and the motion passes. Chair Rabbit, please continue with your report.
Thank you, President Cochran. The committee also recommends approval of item 8B2 to approve establish of a new ferry division capital project 2545, the ramp infrastructure capital improvements in the fiscal year 24-25 ferry division capital budget in the amount of $584,610 as detailed in the staff report, and I so move.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Before I ask for the vote, are there any questions related to this item? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Seeing none, let the record show the opposition. There is no opposition. Chair Rabbit, do you have anything further to report?
Mr. President, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Continue on to item 8C on the agenda, which is a report for today's Rules and Policy and Industrial Relations Committee meeting. Vice Chair Moulton Peters, thank you again for chairing today's meeting. Please begin your report to the board.
Thank you, President Cochran. The Rules, Policy, and Industrial Relations Committee recommends the approval of item 8C1, which will approve continuation of an enhanced employment recruitment program for all regular full-time positions, approve continuation of the employee referral program, and update applicable district policies accordingly, as detailed in the staff report. And I so move.
Thank you. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Before I ask for the vote, are there any questions related to this item? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Seeing none, let the record show no opposition to this motion. Vice Chair Moulton Peters, thank you. Do you have anything else?
That concludes my report, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on. We have nothing under item 9, 10, or 11 is unfinished business, which I will turn over to Kim Manolis for the closed session report. So, moving into closed session. Yeah.
So, yes, President Cochran. At this time, the board will go into closed session for a discussion with its labor negotiator, Public Employee Performance Evaluation Conference, for the report of the Advisory Committee for Review of Officers pursuant to Government Section 54957 and 54957.6, as noted on the agenda. Again, we'll just do this closed session, come out, and then go back into closed session.
Someone in your campaign signs an adjustment for
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your patience while we're in closed session this morning. Please remember to keep your devices on mute. Thanks.
Okay, we're back in open session here.
Moving on, we'll have nothing under item 8, 9. Okay, wait. Libby out here. Madam Secretary, please take us back into open session. You did?
And now, Yes.
Okay, Kim.
So the board met in closed session for a public employee performance evaluation and conference, and received reports on the performance of its officers, and now we're back in open session.
Okay. Vice President Rabbit, can you please report on recommendations of the review of District Officers Advisory Committee?
Great. Thank you very much. On behalf of President Cochran and the review of the officers of the District Advisory Committee, the committee recommends a 3.5% increase to the base salaries of all officers, with the exception of the district's attorney, who is compensated through a contractual agreement. In addition, the committee recommends increasing the district secretary's base salary by $8,500, and I so move.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We have to public comments. Public comments.
Oh, that. So we might all change our vote.
Okay, now, all those in favor.
No.
We need public comment.
We have to have public comment.
You gotta
We're going to ask for public comment.
Well, okay.
Probably know which way we're leaning.
So we have no public comment in the room.
Oh.
Justine, would you like to poll your public line just to make sure we have no public comment on this item and recommendation coming forward?
Certainly. Is there anyone that's joined us that would like to speak on this item this morning? Please use ** to unmute yourself and let me know. Again, if you'd like to speak on this item or any public comment this morning, please use ** to unmute yourself and let me know. Okay, I'm not hearing anyone. Thank you.
Okay, now. I have a motion and a second on this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Let the record show there's no opposition to this motion. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 12, which is a report on the meeting and conferences attended by directors. Directors Hill and Maston went to Orange County to Capitol. Please.
Yeah, that's
Thank you. 2 minutes.
correct. No,
This year's AFTA conference actually started at the end of the last meeting.
Right.
Directors meeting. We had to rush down to Orange County, where it was held right next to Disneyland. I had no time to see Disneyland. I don't know if any of us did. It was absolutely
The happiest place on earth.
Germany's place on earth.
Sorry. I thought it was just a place on earth.
Where was it?
That's where you were. For a little bit.
Which
This was a large one. It was a convention center where there was a lot of big equipment, big buses and everything else. So you could see it also from high to low. Overall, I was shocked at the number of maps, mobility as a service, and autonomous vehicles ranging from neighborhood to the large rail. It was different than anyone I'd ever seen before. I'm going to take a quote with it from there. More than ever, transit services and projects need to extend beyond basic mobility goals and address a broader set of social, economic, environmental outcomes. The session will focus on the connection of public transportation and public policy. Goals include community building, affordability, access to opportunity, energy efficient urban design, placemaking, housing policy, and more. Panelists would be emphasizing. So I think that pretty much said a lot of focus, which is much different. For the first time, I attended a class dealing with hydrogen, and doing it on the buses. We made a tour of Orange County facilities. They do have a hydrogen fleet with different models. They're still sort of pricing it. One of the big problems they're having is that hydrogen is very expensive. There are three major ways hydrogen is produced. One is with natural gas or natural gas. It's a terrible one. Because its effect on the environment is 80 times. Now that's only for 200 years. As versus carbon dioxide is practically forever. But that's the cheapest way to do it. The second one is often called blue, and so that's kind of like natural gas. A nice name, blue. Blue means that they're finding a way of pushing it back down to bring out other ways. It's not perfect, and that's one way of doing it. The third one, and I'll comment, I spoke on this on the third one because nobody was bringing it up, is, and I read the piece on Russia, which is way ahead of us. They have huge numbers of square miles of solar panels and wind to make it, for the quick as possible. Just a second.
Is that your own 2-minute warning?
This is some politician. I apologize. This is going to go away in a few days.
Just send money.
So anyway, with the example of China, which was very infrastructure, we're a long ways from it. So that's the short part of what we saw from it. Let's see. I think that the meetings were well attended, even down to the last days and hours. I went into a room and could hardly get a seat, and the rooms were 200 to 300 people. And so it was exciting. It covered good stuff that I was very much interested in. I thought it was just going to be how efficient wheels were and stuff like that, but it was. Jim, do you have any comments?
Sure.
Okay, Jim?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it to 2 minutes. So infrastructure was definitely the message of the day, which we've heard here as well. And a lot of what I'm going to do is just lots of comments, not necessarily, fully fleshed out thoughts, but, and innovation and staying on mission is also a key element of our future, which we know and I think do pretty well. And one of the interesting thoughts was that public transit is stated as a catalyst for economic growth, that we're a job connector between employer and employee, which I think, we think about, but not really sort of think very deeply on. And when they said that, I thought, yeah, we really are. One of the key keynote speakers was Mia Sorvino, the actress, who is talked about human trafficking, and it's one of her major issues, and the part that public transit plays in trying to identify people who have been trafficked. And there's a DOT link to a video, very good video that for training purposes that I think if we don't already have this on our we do. Okay.
It's part of our drivers VTT, the training that they go through.
Okay. So federal infrastructure legislation, all discussions were prefaced by the phrase, depending on the outcome of the election. We heard a lot of different things. And there was a lot of discussion and mention of disaster and emergency support due to Helene, which was happening at that moment and was not unlike fire disaster funding. However, Helene has made the continuing resolution discussion very complicated. FEMA will need billions. I think the latest figure is $52 or $53 billion worth of damage, just in, the Florida and nearby states. And there may be no permanent resolution until April or May, and maybe not even then. Nobody really knows at this point, again, depending on the outcome of the election. Community investment grants, they talked about, submitting more projects because it makes it easier to argue for funding. So they were pushing that everybody submit lots of projects. They were very clear about educating local representatives on transit and asked that everyone advocate for funding when going to D.C., which we do very well, I believe. and asking for infrastructure dollars. And hoping that infrastructure reauthorization will be a bipartisan issue and not a partisan food fight, which is what they're all sort of expecting is going to happen, unfortunately. Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, IIJA, there are challenges, but at this point, they're less about legal issues and more about perceptions. And again, I think that's related to our political divide in this country. And when people start, another workshop was igniting the next generation workforce. And when people start riding public transit at an early age, they tend to stay loyal to public transit, which we know. And today's youth, as we know, and has been discussed yesterday actually, that today's youth, they're not driving and buying cars. And one thing that can be done, not necessarily by us, but is using school curriculum to highlight public transit and its effect on climate, economics, politics, science, health, technology, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, whatever we can do to try and help that happen in the schools should go, or hopefully will go a long way towards getting more riders on public transit. One thing that was interesting was somebody brought up scholarships, and I was thinking, do we offer scholarships for, not necessarily for like internship types of things, but
the Bridge District does not offer scholarships.
And I was wondering if, and some agencies have foundations that, are separate from the board where they can do different types of things like scholarships and other things to, support things happening in the community. And I thought, well, maybe that's something we might want to consider or, see if somebody wanted to establish something such as that.
We do have that partnership in the bus driver training program.
We have lots of partnerships, though we don't have a nonprofit foundation. The district's last experience with the aligned nonprofit foundation was about 35 years ago, and the headlines were most unkind. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Thank you.
But the bus driver training program's great.
Yeah, but that's not a foundation.
I know, but I'm just trying to be Susie Sunshine.
Second chance programs were discussed also, partnering with prisons to create curriculum and programs that dovetail with trade apprenticeship programs and other things like welding, electrical, et cetera, locksmithing. And another one was transforming transit in the Golden State. And we're one of the few that's bus systems that's primarily a commuter service, or originally designed for it. And so a lot of the things that they talked about really weren't appropriate or applicable to us because they were focused more on local, service. And, but one of the things that they did talk about was 24/7 routes. I thought, whoa, I need a lot more drivers, and I don't know if we're there yet.
You have to draw a lot of people that don't have places to sleep.
Yeah, I thought about that too. And of course, electrification is a big issue for agencies, but I know in our area and elsewhere in California, PG&E, San Diego Gas and Electric, Southern Edison, et cetera, are saying we're not going to hook you up because we can't provide the electricity. So, that's a huge issue in our state and elsewhere as well. Ridership trends was another issue. Calgary Transit, they recovered their ridership, but not their revenue, because they're selling fewer monthly passes. One of the things that they did do was they established safety hubs with security personnel. They also instituted a karaoke bus, which would be an interesting drive ridership for us. They lost 800 drivers, but hired them all back by 2023. Expanded weekend service. I think they might have been the one that did 24/7 service. But again, in a localized area, that's something you might want to consider. For us, not so much. Metro St. Louis has not recovered from COVID. They're still at about 50% of service, and they were 37 million passengers pre-COVID, and they're at about 18 now. They were at 18 at the lowest, and they're only at about 20 million riders now. And they lost drivers. About 15 a month left the agency, and that's really affected their ability to provide service because they can't get them back. They have 650 operators currently. One thing that I thought was really interesting was Metro St. Louis has a volunteer mentorship program with ATU where new drivers ride their mentor's route for a week, and then the mentor rides with the newbie on their route for a week afterwards.
We have a bus driver mentor program.
We do?
Yes.
Well, congratulations to us. And let's see, Cincinnati is 117% of pre-COVID. They did not reduce service, and they added routes, increased weekend service, implemented 24-hour routes, and they simplified their fare structure and focused on marketing. You don't tell them what you did, they don't know you did it, and I think we're well aware of that. And like so many conferences and conventions, networking is huge, and this is no different. I gave out lots of bridges, bridge pens, pins. Yeah, so that's it.
Jim, can I ask you a question on that? Was it Cincinnati that went up 117%? Was that in routes and service or in passengers?
I believe it was in passengers.
Okay.
Okay. And I didn't keep it to 2 minutes, but.
Any questions of her?
I'd like to go on a phone call and ask Amarat. She attended a lot of classes there too. And just real quickly, just seconds, do you have anything that you feel is something that should be shared?
No, just the sentiment that many people did the same thing you've already mentioned. They didn't want to make any shake the magic 8 ball to figure out what's going to happen in the next 6 months. Everyone's very cautious and waiting for the elections to be over and wait for the dust to settle before they know where the feds are going to head, the locals are going to head, and what they're going to do. Many are considering local measures and regional measures for transit, so we're not alone.
Okay,
great. Thank you.
All right, any other questions of Jim or Bert? If not, thank you both for your report. Now, we're going back into closed session for the finishing of our attorney's report.
Great.
Kim?
Thanks, President Cochran. At this time, the board will go into closed session for discussion with legal counsel regarding existing litigation under Government Code 54956.9D2. The case is listed on the agenda. And again, there will not be an open session item after this. So for members of the public, you may want, we'll have a short report after the closed session, but there will not be an open session item.
Thank you, everybody, while we remain in closed session this morning. I appreciate you keeping your phones on mute. Thank you.
We're back in open session.
All right. Mike, you had a kid first. What's that?
First, yeah. Gotta get us out of here.
So the board met in closed session with its legal counsel regarding the existing litigation listed on the agenda and gave its counsel appropriate guidance as to how to proceed.
Barry Holt, please.
Yeah, I just want to commend the Pedestrian Bicycle Advisory Committee and WTB-TAM for the letters in our correspondence packet. If you have not looked at them, please do. They're well worth close attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Okay. We have items number 12. There's no other new business. Communications, as Mike said, be sure to read that, the communications we got this month. And moving on, let's see. If you'd like to receive a copy of any additional communication, please see Amaret. Okay, that takes us to the end of the agenda and no further items to be presented to the board. I have a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Most.
And second? Second. Okay. Thank you, colleagues. This concludes our meeting of the board of directors
President Cochran?
at this time. And we'd like to adjourn in a moment for Brad Nornato. He's Mike Thompson's aide and also a cousin to our governor. So if we would all do that. Thank you all. It's 11:15.